Have you ever caught yourself saying, my RBT just isn't motivated, or like they just don't have a good work ethic?
Right.
Yeah, stop right there.
Yeah.
Because if a supervisee isn't taking data correctly, or maybe they're inconsistently implementing a behavior plan, I mean, it is not a personality flaw.
Absolutely not.
It is an environmental variable that you haven't assessed yet.
Yeah, and we are opening a massive stack of research today for this deep dive. I mean, from the BACB 6th edition guidelines to the supervisor's guidebook. Because honestly, the field of applied behavior analysis has a massive blind spot here.
Oh, a huge one.
We are world class at analyzing the behavior of our clients, right? But the second we look at our own staff, we completely abandon the science.
Yeah, we just throw it out the window.
Exactly. We start blaming their personalities or their initiative. So today's mission is to apply our own science to ourselves.
Which is so needed.
We are targeting BACB 6th edition task list item I.6. That is applying a function-based approach to assess and improve supervisee behavior. And we're doing this with no fluff, just elite exam-focused clinical strategy.
Okay, well, let's unpack this right away, because this is a massive paradigm shift for, like, a lot of people listening right now.
It really is.
We're looking at a stack of incredibly dense, high-level sources today, you know. We've got the BACB 6th edition test content outline, the supervisor's guidebook, ethics for behavior analysts, and a massive bank of Pearson VUE-style mock exam questions.
The heavy hitters.
Yeah, the heavy hitters. And the mission of this deep dive is to synthesize all of this into a clear clinical framework. But, I mean, I have to push back right out of the gate here.
Okay, let's hear it.
So I hear what you're saying about behavior, but practically speaking, clinic directors are going to roll their eyes at this.
Well, I've seen them do it.
Right. Because an RBT is an adult who is being paid to do a job. A 3-year-old client with autism is not. So how do you convince a stressed-out clinic owner that they need to do, like, a full functional analysis on an adult who is just, you know, ignoring the employee handbook?
Yeah, that's the classic objection.
Doesn't a paycheck negate the need to treat our staff like we treat our clients?
And that right there is exactly the trap that destroys clinical cultures. I mean, it really does. Let's look at the operant mechanics of a paycheck for a second.
Okay, yeah. Walk me through that.
A paycheck is a delayed, generalized, conditioned reinforcer, and it's delivered on a fixed interval schedule, usually every 2 weeks, right?
Right, every other Friday.
Exactly. And basic behavior analysis tells us that a delayed consequence, something delivered weeks after a behavior actually occurs, does not maintain specific, high-effort, moment-to-moment clinical behaviors.
Oh, wow.
Especially in a chaotic environment. It simply doesn't.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. Because if an RBT is dealing with a client engaging in, say, severe high-magnitude aggression, the paycheck you're going to receive next Friday has zero functional control over their immediate decision to implement a complex differential reinforcement procedure in that exact second.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look, when you put it like that, it's undeniable. The delayed reinforcement of the salary is totally disconnected from the immediate response effort of the clinical task.
Totally disconnected. The principles of operant conditioning do not suddenly stop applying just because someone has a master's degree or a certification or an employment contract.
Right. The laws of behavior don't care about your W-2.
Exactly. And as stated explicitly in the supervisor's guidebook, blaming an employee's character or their work ethic is known as the cop-out attitude.
The cop-out attitude. I love that phrase.
It's the perfect term for it. Think about it clinically for a second. We would never look at a client and say, they just don't want to learn, or they're just being lazy.
We'd get fired if we said that about a client.
We absolutely would. Instead, what do? We analyze the environment. We look at the antecedents. We look at the response effort, the schedules of reinforcement, and the exact topography of the target behavior.
Right.
And we have to extend that exact same scientific rigor to those we supervise. If an RBT is failing to implement a procedure correctly, the supervisor's system is what's failing.
That is heavy.
It's true, though. We have to identify the environmental variables influencing that personnel's work behavior, not just assign blame.
So I want to dig deeper into why supervisors do this. Because it's so easy to sit in the supervisor's chair and say, well, I trained them once during onboarding, they just aren't trying.
Yeah, you hear that all the time.
So is it just laziness on the supervisor's part, or is there a behavioral mechanism driving the supervisor's behavior too?
Oh, it is entirely behavioral. Blaming the staff member is a behavior maintained by negative reinforcement.
Wait, really? Negative reinforcement.
Think about it. If a clinical director admits that the environment is fundamentally flawed, the response effort required to fix it is massive.
Oh, I see.
Right. You're talking about redesigning data sheets, conducting structural assessments, running comprehensive behavioral skills training. It's a huge amount of work.
Yeah, that's hours and hours of non-billable time, usually.
Exactly. So by attributing the failure to the employee's internal drive, the supervisor escapes the immense effort of doing their actual job.
Wow. They escape the task demand of being a good supervisor.
You nailed it. But the sources point out that human service agencies often suffer because supervisors lack the formal training necessary to actually manage performance. They rely on corporate fads or generic intuition, or worst of all, punitive control.
Yeah, like the old do this or you're fired approach.
Which is just awful clinical practice.
So we have to stop escaping the work and start systematically diagnosing these deficits. But how do we do that without just guessing? Because I imagine you can't just walk into a clinic room, stare at an RBT, and magically know why they aren't filling out their session notes.
No, you definitely can't do that. We use a structured function-based approach derived from organizational behavior management, or OBM.
Okay, OBM.
Specifically, we use tools like the Performance Diagnostic Checklist Human Services, the PDC-H.
PDC-HS. Okay, I know a lot of people studying for the exam right now are furiously taking notes.
And they should be. This is a crucial assessment tool that evaluates 4 specific domains of the work environment. But before we even dive into the domains, we must understand the core diagnostic split.
What's the split?
We have to ask, is this a skill deficit or a performance deficit?
Okay, break that down for me.
A skill deficit means the supervisee simply does not know how to perform the task. If their life depended on it, they couldn't do it.
Like asking me to fly a helicopter.
Exactly. You don't have the skill. But a performance deficit, which is far more common in our field, means they know exactly how to do it. But environmental contingencies, a lack of resources, or excessively high response effort are impeding them from executing the skill.
Okay, so it's a can't do versus a won't do, but won't do.
Yeah.
Actually means the environment is punishing the behavior.
Right. It's an environmental block.
Okay, so let's break down these 4 domains of the PDC-HS, because if I'm a listener prepping for the exam or even just trying to fix my clinic tomorrow, I need to know exactly what I'm looking for.
Let's do it. Domain 1 is training.
Training. Simple enough.
Well, you say that, but it's deeper. Did they actually receive formal competency-based training on this specific task, or did someone just hand them a manual and say, read this?
Oh, man. The read this binder training. I've been there.
We all have, and that is not training, that's just a reading assignment. Domain 2 is task clarification and prompting. Does the supervisee actually know what is expected of them in clear behavioral terms? Are there job aids or visual prompts in the environment to remind them during complex tasks?
Okay, on that second domain, task clarification, I've seen supervisors tape like a 10-page clinical protocol to the wall and call it a visual prompt.
Oh, please tell me you're joking.
No, I've actually seen it. But in reality, when a client is throwing chairs, a 10-page document isn't a prompt. It's just visual noise.
Precisely. A prompt must evoke the correct behavior at the correct time. If the response effort to read the prompt is too high, it completely fails to function as a prompt.
That makes total sense.
And that leads perfectly into domain 3, resources, materials, and processes. Does the staff member have the actual physical tools required to do the job safely and effectively?
Give me a really grounded, granular example of a resource failure in a clinic. Because I think people hear resources and they think of like budget issues.
Yeah, it's much more microscopic than that. A classic resource failure involves token economies. Let's say a behavior plan requires an RBT to deliver a token within 1 second of a targeted alternative behavior.
Right. Standard immediate reinforcement.
Exactly. But the token board is missing Velcro. Or maybe the tokens are kept in a Ziploc bag inside a backpack across the room.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. The RBT has the skill. They know when to deliver the token. But the physical environment creates a 10-second delay. That delay breaks the contiguity of the reinforcement schedule.
So the intervention stops working.
The intervention fails. The RBT realizes it isn't working. Their behavior of using the token board undergoes extinction, and they stop using it.
Oh.
Then the supervisor walks in, sees no token board, and says, this RBT is lazy. But the PDC-HS would reveal it's a Domain 3 failure, resources and materials.
That is a brilliant breakdown. The environment literally punished the RBT's correct clinical behavior.
Yes, it did.
And what is the final domain?
Domain 4, performance consequences and effort. What actually happens when the RBT does the job correctly?
Usually, in my experience, nothing.
Exactly, nothing happens. Or worse, if they are highly competent, they get rewarded with the most severe high-magnitude cases.
Oh, the competency tax.
Yes, which essentially functions as positive punishment for being good at your job. You do well, you get harder work.
It is so true and so toxic.
It's a huge issue. And conversely, what happens when they do it incorrectly? If there is no immediate structured feedback, the incorrect behavior contacts natural reinforcement, usually escape from the high effort of the task.
So they just learn to do it the easy, wrong way.
You have to diagnose the function across these 4 domains before you prescribe the intervention.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Let's move from the abstract concept into a real-world applied ABA example directly from our source material.
Perfect.
Imagine this clinic scenario. You have a supervisee, let's call him Sam.
Okay, Sam.
Sam is working in a severe behavior clinic. He's overwhelmed by a highly complex data collection system. We are talking frequency, duration, and latency all being tracked simultaneously on a paper data sheet while he's trying to manage a client's aggressive behavior and block self-injurious behavior.
That is a lot for one person.
It's chaos. He is making constant errors. The data is a mess. Now, the typical supervisor's initial reaction might be to pull Sam into the office, give him a stern talking to, and assign him to rewatch a 2-hour generalized training video on the importance of data collection.
And that is exactly why generic interventions fail and why that clinic's data will remain invalid.
Why doesn't the video work?
If we apply our function-based approach and look at the variables, we immediately see that the issue isn't that Sam doesn't understand what data is. He doesn't have a fundamental knowledge deficit about the definition of frequency or latency.
Right, he passes RBT exam, he knows what they mean.
Exactly. The issue is the overwhelming complexity and the extreme response effort of this specific, highly demanding data collection system within a chaotic environment.
Right. Because putting a poorly trained RBT on a complex, multivariable data sheet while a client is engaging in severe aggression it's like asking someone to solve a Rubik's Cube while running on a treadmill.
I love that analogy.
The issue isn't that they don't know what a Rubik's Cube is. That would be a skill deficit. The issue is that the environmental response effort is absolutely maxed out. Watching a video about the history of the Rubik's Cube isn't going to help them solve it while sprinting.
It's a perfect analogy because it highlights the mechanism of response effort. The targeted function-based clinical intervention here is twofold, and it directly addresses the environment, not Sam's work ethic.
Okay, what's the first fold?
First, you manipulate the antecedent environment by decreasing the response effort. You simplify the data collection system.
How do you do that without losing clinical integrity?
If tracking exact duration and latency is causing the entire system to collapse, you assess if a discontinuous measurement system like momentary time sampling or partial interval recording could yield clinically viable data while radically reducing the burden on Sam. Oh, that makes so much sense.
Alternatively, you digitize the data sheet with automated timestamps, so Sam just has to tap a single button on a screen.
So you fix the environment first. You lower the barrier to entry. What's the second part of the intervention?
The second step is conducting a targeted, competency-based training session, specifically on that newly simplified system. You don't just sit in an office and talk at him. You use behavioral skills training, or BST.
Oh, BST. We need to hover on this for a second.
Yes, we do.
Because our sources pound the table on this. It's not just telling someone how to do something. The BACB supervision training curriculum outline explicitly states that supervisors need to be able to apply training across differing scenarios. Not discuss, not define, but apply.
That's a critical distinction.
Can you walk us through exactly how a clinical director should run BST with Sam for this new data sheet? Because I feel like people skip the critical components all the time.
They do skip them, usually the rehearsal and feedback phases, because those require the most effort from the supervisor. Right, again with the supervisor's response effort.
Exactly. But here's how it should look. Step 1 is instruction. You provide the rationale for the new data sheet, explain why we simplified it, and give spoken and written instructions on how to use it.
Okay, standard teaching.
Step 2 is modeling. This is crucial. The supervisor must physically demonstrate the exact data collection process. In Sam's case, the supervisor should role-play the exact scenario.
Like fake hitting.
Yes. The supervisor holds the iPad while someone else simulates the client's severe behavior. Sam watches the supervisor successfully record the data while managing the crisis.
Wow, so you're actually showing him what right looks like in the exact context he'll be working in. You aren't just showing him a blank spreadsheet.
Context is everything. If you don't model it in context, it doesn't generalize. Then, step 3 is rehearsal.
Sam's turn.
Sam takes the iPad. The supervisor simulates the client's severe behavior. Sam has to practice recording the data while blocking simulated aggression.
That sounds intense.
It has to be realistic. And this brings us to step 4, immediate contingent feedback. The supervisor does not wait until the end of the day. The moment Sam correctly inputs the time-sampled data while blocking a hit, the supervisor provides specific behavior-anchored praise. If Sam makes an error, the supervisor stops the simulation immediately, provides corrective feedback, models it again if necessary, and has Sam redo the rehearsal.
And competency-based training means the training does not stop until the staff member is observed performing the skill competently.
Right.
You don't just run through the 4 steps once and check a box.
No, absolutely not. You run the loop of rehearsal and feedback until Sam achieves mastery. That is the defining characteristic of competency-based training.
So it's data-driven training.
In behavior analysis, we evaluate the effectiveness of our supervision by the outcomes. If you train Sam and Sam still cannot collect the data accurately during the simulation, your training was not effective. The burden of proof is always on the supervisor's system.
I feel like a lot of supervisors would be defensive about that.
They are, but you have to monitor the staff performance continuously. And this brings us to the formal monitoring step of the evidence-based supervisory protocol. Monitoring involves systematically and objectively observing the quality of staff work in the natural environment.
Like on the clinic floor.
Exactly. Without objective monitoring, you are flying blind. You have to know what the staff is doing to know if your BST generalized from the role play to the actual clinical floor.
This naturally pushes us to look at the common mistakes supervisors make when trying to implement this. We've established the gold standard of elite clinical practice, PDCHS, environmental manipulation, and rigorous BST. But our sources highlight several massive pitfalls that derail clinical operations. Let's dissect these traps.
Good idea.
You already mentioned trap 1, which is the cop-out attitude, believing that poor performance is inherent to the staff member rather than a result of ineffective supervision. But trap 2 is something I see literally everywhere in almost every clinic I visit.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
It is what the Ethics for Behavior Analysts source explicitly calls supervision in name only.
Oh, yeah. Supervision in name only is a pervasive, dangerous, and frankly unethical practice.
What does it actually look like in practice?
It usually looks like a supervisor walking down the hallway, sticking their head into a session room, asking the RBT, "Hey, how's little Timmy doing? Everything good?"
Yeah.
The RBT, who is desperate to avoid a lengthy corrective conversation, says, "Yep, he's doing great." The supervisor says, "Awesome, keep it up," and then walks back to their office and documents a 15-minute supervision contact.
Oh man, it hurts because it's so common.
But that is not supervision. Supervision is a non-behavioral term. The behavioral equivalent is behavior shaping. True supervision requires objective, structured treatment integrity checks, direct observation, and formal feedback.
Let me jump in here because I really want to paint a picture for the listener. When a supervisor just asks, "How's it going?" what are they actually doing from an operant perspective?
They're setting up a terrible contingency.
Exactly. They are setting up a contingency where the RBT's verbal report is reinforced by the supervisor, leaving them alone. The supervisor isn't assessing procedural integrity. They aren't taking data on the implementation of the behavior plan. They aren't checking if the RBT is delivering the exact reinforcement schedule prescribed or if the intertrial intervals are correct.
Right. It's totally subjective.
It's like a doctor prescribing a generic antibiotic over the phone because the patient said, "I feel kind of sick." If you throw a one-size-fits-all assumption at a clinical case without diagnosing the function, or if you just assume everything is fine because they said it's going well, you're just guessing. And in elite clinical practice, we do not guess.
Precisely. We measure. And we measure objectively. Code 4.08 of the Ethics Code for Behavior Analysts mandates that behavior analysts engage in and document ongoing evidence-based data collection and performance monitoring of their supervisees.
You cannot document what you do not objectively observe.
Exactly. This requires supervisors to use prepared monitoring forms or digital tools to guide their observations, like a performance checklist.
What's a performance checklist look like?
A performance checklist is a written listing of all the key actions or staff behaviors necessary to perform a certain duty. It's essentially a task analysis for the staff member. You stand in that room, you watch them execute the task sequence, and you score it step by step. This removes the subjectivity and the reliance on inaccurate verbal reports.
Which brings us to trap 3, providing feedback without competence. This one is brutal, but so absolutely necessary to call out.
It's uncomfortable, but we have to talk about it.
What happens when a clinic director or a mid-level supervisor tries to correct an RBT on a task that the supervisor themselves cannot actually perform proficiently? Let's say it's a highly complex feeding protocol, and the supervisor has only read the research article, but has never actually run the protocol in real life.
If you can't model it, you can't supervise it. The sources are unequivocally clear on this. If a supervisor is expected to train staff on a complex differential reinforcement procedure or a feeding protocol, but the supervisor lacks the clinical fluency to execute that procedure themselves under pressure, the training will inevitably fail. You cannot provide accurate, contingent feedback on microbehaviors if you don't know what those microbehaviors look and feel like in real time.
And beyond just the technical failure of the training, what does that do to the culture of the clinic?
Oh, it destroys it. The staff will quickly realize the supervisor doesn't actually know what they are doing.
Right. Why should I listen to you?
Exactly. From a behavioral perspective, the supervisor loses all instructional control. Their feedback becomes an annoying antecedent rather than a discriminative stimulus for effective practice. This instantly erodes respect and psychological safety.
So what's the ethical mandate there?
Behavior analysts must supervise only within their areas of defined competence. If you lack the skill, you must acquire the competence yourself by seeking out your own supervision and training before attempting to evaluate or shape the behavior of your supervisee.
So we've established that blaming the staff member is a clinical failure, that hallway check-ins are unethical, and that you have to actually know how to do the job to supervise it. But how does the BACB actually test our ability to recognize this?
That's the million-dollar question.
For everyone listening right now who is sitting for the 6th edition exam, we need to understand Pearson VUB logic. Because if a test taker is staring at a scenario where a clinic is falling apart, Pearson BUE isn't going to give them a simple true-false question.
No, they make you work for it.
They're going to hide the environmental variable in a complex prompt. Let's break down some exact, if you see this, choose this scenarios based on the mock questions in our stack.
Let's look at a scenario involving the PDCHS because they love testing the alignment between assessment and intervention.
Okay, lay it on me.
If you see a scenario where an assessment tool like the PDCHS identifies a deficit in task clarification and prompting and training, but performance consequences and resources materials are specifically identified as not needing improvement, choose an intervention that specifically targets task clarification. For example, choose an answer that suggests simplifying a checklist, providing a visual job aid at the workstation, or utilizing behavioral skills training to clarify the expectations.
And crucially, do not choose an intervention that adds a financial bonus, a lottery system, or alters the consequences. Why? Because the assessment explicitly told you that motivation and performance consequences were not the function of the deficit.
Exactly. The exam is testing if you actually use the diagnostic data to drive the intervention, or if you just pick a randomly good-sounding ABA strategy like a token economy.
Right. If the car has a flat tire, you don't change the oil just because changing the oil is generally a good thing to do.
It's functional alignment. Let's look at another one. If you see a scenario where a supervisor observes educational assistants inconsistently implementing a behavior intervention plan, a BIP, and the prompt states it is primarily due to unfamiliarity with the specific techniques outlined in that particular plan.
Unfamiliarity. Okay.
Choose developing a targeted training program that includes practical exercises, role play, and direct feedback on those exact techniques.
Again, target the specific deficit. Do not choose an answer that requires all assistants to attend a generalized full-day training session on the basic principles of behavior analysis.
No, generalized training does not fix specific implementation unfamiliarity.
If I don't know how to operate a specific forklift, giving me a lecture on the physics of leverage doesn't help.
Right. And definitely do not choose scheduling more frequent staff meetings to discuss performance metrics. Discussing metrics is just talking. It doesn't teach the motor skill of implementation.
Give me the scenario.
Here's a third scenario, focusing heavily on measurement tools and vocabulary. If you see a question asking for the best tool to evaluate if a supervisee is implementing a treatment protocol exactly as it was written by the BCBA.
Okay, what do I choose?
Choose treatment integrity check or procedural fidelity check.
Right. Not a skills assessment.
Correct.
Because a skills assessment evaluates their general competency across a wide range of tasks, not their specific step-by-step implementation of a single protocol at that exact moment.
Correct.
And not a quality assurance check, which is a corporate buzzword, not a precise behavioral term. Pearson VUE wants the precise behavior analytic terminology. Treatment integrity, procedural fidelity. Burn those terms into your brain.
Let's also look at a critical scenario regarding the unwanted effects of monitoring. The Supervisor's Guidebook discusses the phenomenon of reactivity at length. Reactivity is when a person alters their behavior simply because they know they're being observed.
Oh, we need to give a real-world example of reactivity because everyone listening has experienced this. We've all seen it.
Oh, absolutely.
You walk into the clinic room with your clipboard to do an observation, and suddenly the RBT, who is slumped in a chair looking at their phone, is standing up, using an overly enthusiastic voice, delivering tokens at lightning speed, and running trials perfectly.
Like magic.
That's reactivity. The presence of the supervisor acts as an SD for hypercompliance. But how do we actually defeat that behaviorally on the exam and in real life? Because we need data on their natural behavior, not their panicked, my boss is watching behavior.
Good question. If you see a scenario describing exactly what you just said, staff immediately changing their behavior the moment the supervisor walks into the room, choose an intervention that mitigates reactivity.
And what's the best way to do that?
The most evidence-based way to reduce reactivity is to monitor frequently and on an unpredictable schedule.
Yes, because if you only show up once a month with a clipboard, you are a novel, highly salient stimulus. Your presence represents a massive shift in the environment, signaling potential punishment or high-stakes evaluation. Of course they are going to react.
Of course.
But if you're in there constantly, multiple times a week, sometimes for 5 minutes, sometimes for an hour, at totally random times, the novelty wears off. Habituation occurs. You just become part of the natural environment, and you get a much more accurate, valid picture of their true performance.
And this transition into monitoring schedules naturally brings us to our clinical power insight. This is the advanced thinking, the profound paradigm shift that separates an average exam-cramming BCBA from an elite clinical director.
I am ready.
As a behavior analyst, your ultimate accountability is this. You are responsible for the conduct and performance of your supervisees. You must routinely monitor them to gather evidence on whether your supervisory actions are working. The data you collect on your supervisees isn't just to grade them, it's to grade you.
I really want the listener to sit with that for a second. That is a massive paradigm shift. If my RBT's treatment integrity data is flatlining, my supervision data is flatlining, I am the one failing.
Exactly. If you find yourself having to resort to constant punitive measures, verbal warnings, write-ups, or disciplinary action, your proactive systems are fundamentally broken.
The environment is broken.
Your clear expectations, your task clarification, your BST, your supportive feedback loops, those antecedent and reinforcement-based systems have failed. You are relying on punishment because your reinforcement systems are bankrupt.
To make this actionable right now for the listener who's realizing they need to overhaul their supervision style, what is the exact formula for delivering feedback that actually changes staff behavior?
Okay, let's talk about feedback.
Because we've all been given the corporate feedback sandwich, right? The compliment, the criticism, the compliment. Hey, great shirt today. Your data collection is terrible and you're ruining the BIP. But I love those shoes.
The dreaded sandwich.
Our sources say that's not just ineffective, it's actually detrimental. It needs to be a structured behavior analytic intervention.
The feedback sandwich is terrible because it conditions praise to become a warning signal for impending punishment. Staff start dreading compliments because they know the but is coming.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Praise becomes an antecedent for anxiety.
Exactly. Instead, the Supervisor's Guidebook provides a highly validated, evidence-based 7-step feedback protocol. This isn't just being a good boss. It is a structured, mechanistic intervention designed to shape human behavior. Let's walk through the exact execution and the operant mechanism behind each step.
Let's do it. Step 1.
Step 1. Begin with an empathetic or positive statement. This isn't generic praise. It is an acknowledgement of the environment. I know it's been incredibly chaotic today with the schedule changes.
Okay, so empathy first.
Yes. Behaviorally, this acts as an abolishing operation. It decreases the value of escape-maintained behavior like defensiveness, or arguing by validating their current state. It lowers the response effort required for the supervisee to listen to the rest of the feedback.
That makes perfect sense. You're disarming the fight or flight response before you deliver the clinical correction. What's next?
Step 2. Specify exactly what was done correctly. Do not use generalities like, good job today. Be objective and behavioral. Say, during the first 10 minutes of the session, you delivered the exact fixed ratio reinforcement schedule perfectly every single time. This strengthens the specific correct behaviors you want to maintain.
Okay, so hyper-specific reinforcement. Step 3.
Step 3. Specify exactly what was done incorrectly. Again, be objective, behavioral, and neutral in your tone. However, during the escalation at 10.15, you provided vocal attention, which the behavior plan explicitly places on extinction. You are identifying the exact topographical discrepancy between their behavior and the protocol.
You're not saying you were sloppy. You're saying exactly what movement was wrong.
Exactly. Step 4. Specify exactly how to correct it. Next time, the moment the precursor behavior begins, you must break eye contact, step back, and withhold all vocalizations. You are providing the exact replacement behavior.
Clear task clarification. Step 5.
Step 5. Solicit questions. Do you have any questions about how that looks or what to do if the client moves toward you? This ensures comprehension and allows the supervisee to voice any resource or clarity barriers you might have missed.
It's going to be they didn't have the space to step back.
Right. It catches those Domain 3 resource issues. Step 6. Inform them of the next monitoring step. I'm going to come back during the next session on Tuesday specifically to observe this extinction protocol again.
Let's pause on step 6 for a second. Inform them of the next monitoring step. That is so incredibly powerful. It completely eliminates the anxiety of the unknown.
It really does.
You aren't sneaking around trying to catch them failing. You are explicitly telling them, I'm going to come back and look for this specific replacement behavior because I want to catch you doing it right so I can reinforce it.
Yeah.
That builds trust. That builds psychological safety.
It creates a transparent contingency. When you look at the Ethics Code 4.08, it mandates that behavior analysts develop, communicate, implement, and evaluate an improvement plan with clearly identified procedures for addressing the problem.
And this protocol does exactly that.
This 7-step protocol is the micro-execution of that massive ethical mandate. You are communicating the exact discrepancy, the exact replacement behavior, and the exact schedule of future observation.
And the final step.
Step 7. End positively. Reiterate your confidence in their ability to execute the skill. You have great instructional control with this client. I know you'll nail this protocol on Tuesday.
Okay, we have covered a massive amount of ground today. We completely deconstructed the concept of performance diagnostics and the PDCHS. We looked at how to dismantle a complex data sheet and use the 4 steps of BST to actually build competence.
We did a lot.
We exposed the unethical supervision and name-only trap. We mapped out the nuanced Pearson VUE exam logic regarding functional alignment. And we armed you with the elite mechanistic 7-step feedback protocol.
The overarching theme here is accountability and environmental analysis. Do not blame the individual until you have exhaustively evaluated and optimized the environment they are operating within. If your staff is failing, your system is failing, period.
Which brings me to our final thought, a challenge I want you to mull over after this deep dive ends. Consider this. If behavior analysis is truly universal, and if staff behavior is entirely a product of the contingencies we design, what does the massive turnover rate of the entire ABA industry say about our collective supervision systems on a macro level?
It's a tough question to answer.
If the industry is constantly bleeding talent and burning out RBTs, maybe the industry itself needs a massive functional analysis. Look at the lowest performing member of your clinical team right now. Before you write them off, before you complain to another BCBA about them, ask yourself, have you formally assessed their environment? Remember, their behavior follows the exact same principles as your clients. If this helped you, follow behavioral intelligence, share this episode with another RBT or BCBA who's studying, and leave a comment or review. That's how we grow and how I keep creating high-level content for you.
At Amethyst Therapy Services, Inc., we build clinicians, not just test passers. Via www.amethysttherapyservices.com.